In the heart of a vast African savanna, there stood a small village called Ngoma. Its people were vibrant and lively, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of nature and the pulse of community. In Ngoma, the villagers were close-knit, bound by traditions, kinship, and tales passed down from generation to generation. Among these villagers were two young women, Nia and Zalika, who had been best friends since childhood. Nia was married to one of the wealthiest men in the village, a man named Kofi. His riches were well known throughout the land, as was his handsome appearance and impressive stature. He owned large herds of cattle, vast fields of crops, and countless pieces of gold jewelry that shimmered in the sunlight. Nia's marriage to Kofi was a match that the village praised. The other women would often whisper about how fortunate she was, how blessed her life must be. But what they didn't know was that behind the grandeur of her marriage, Nia lived a life filled with secrets and shadows. One warm afternoon, as the two friends sat beneath the baobab tree, enjoying the soft breeze that carried with it the scent of wildflowers, Nia noticed something unsettling. Zalika's eyes kept lingering on Kofi, watching him as he moved about the village, giving orders to his workers and tending to his affairs. There was something in the way Zalika gazed at him, her eyes filled with longing and desire. It wasn't the first time Nia had noticed it, but today it felt different. The looks were more intense, the admiration barely hidden. Nia's heart began to churn with a mixture of emotions. She loved her friend dearly, but jealousy crept in like a snake slithering through the grass. Yet, alongside the jealousy, another idea sprouted. As the wind rustled through the trees and the sun cast golden rays over the savanna, a thought bloomed in her heart, a dangerous thought. What if Zalika married Kofi? She didn't know where the idea had come from, but once it took root, it grew rapidly. Nia turned to Zalika, her voice calm, though her heart raced. Zalika, she said, you admire Kofi, don't you? Zalika's face flushed, her eyes widening in surprise. What do you mean? She asked, trying to feign innocence. You've been staring at him all afternoon, Nia continued, a strange smile on her lips. You know, if you like him so much, why don't you marry him? Zalika's laughter was awkward, almost forced. Marry him? Nia, you are his wife. Why would you say such a thing? But Nia could see through her friend's act. Zalika's hands trembled slightly as she spoke, and there was a glint in her eyes that betrayed her. Despite her words, Zalika was interested, deeply interested. And the more Nia thought about it, the more convinced she became that this was the right thing to do. There was something in the way Zalika desired Kofi that felt dangerous. Better to give her friend what she wanted and see where it led. Zalika, Nia said, leaning closer, if you truly want Kofi, I'll make it happen. You can marry him. But there's only one condition. Zalika's heart raced with excitement, but she kept her face composed. What condition? She asked. He will divorce me, Nia replied, her eyes locking with Zalika's. If you marry him, you must make sure he divorces me. For a moment, Zalika's heart skipped a beat. Divorce? The thought of Nia losing her marriage didn't sit well with her, but the idea of becoming Kofi's wife, of living in wealth and luxury, far overshadowed any guilt. After all, Nia was offering this to her willingly. It wasn't as if she was stealing him. Are you sure about this? Zalika asked, her voice trembling slightly. Nia nodded. Yes, I've thought it over. Kofi and I aren't what we used to be. Maybe this is for the best. Inside, Zalika's joy surged. She tried to hide her smile, but she couldn't help the excitement bubbling up inside her. If you're sure, then. Yes, I'll marry him within days. The preparations began. The village buzzed with gossip and surprise at the sudden turn of events, but no one dared question Nia's decision. After all, she was the one who had arranged the marriage herself. Zalika beamed with excitement as she was adorned in the finest silks and gold for her wedding day, her heart swelling with the knowledge that she was about to step into a life of unimaginable wealth and comfort. Kofi, for his part, seemed indifferent to the change. He agreed to the marriage without much emotion, accepting Nia's request to divorce her. To him, Zalika was no different from any other woman, just another addition to his life of luxury. The ceremony was grand, filled with music, dancing, and feasts that lasted for days. As the sun set on the day of the wedding, Zalika could hardly contain her excitement. Her dreams were finally coming true. But little did she know, her dreams would soon turn into nightmares. That night, as Zalika entered Kofi's grand home for the first time as his wife, she marveled at the beauty of the place. The high ceilings, the intricate carvings on the walls, the shimmering gold trinkets, it was everything she had ever imagined. But there was an eerie silence in the house, a stillness that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Kofi had barely spoken to her during the day, and now, as she stood alone in the dimly lit room, she began to feel a sense of unease. The door creaked open, and Kofi entered, his expression blank, his eyes cold. Zalika smiled at him nervously, trying to break the tension. "Kofi, my husband," she said softly, "I'm so happy to be your wife." Kofi didn't respond. Instead, he stared at her, his eyes dark and unreadable. Slowly, he approached her, and for the first time, Zalika felt a shiver of fear. There was something off about him, something she had never noticed before. His movements were slow, deliberate, as if he were calculating every step. "Do you know why Nia wanted you to marry me?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. Zalika swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. She said it was because we weren't close anymore. That maybe it was for the best. Kofi laughed, a cold, hollow sound that sent chills down Zalika's spine. "Is that what she told you?" he sneered. "Let me tell you the truth, Zalika. Nia didn't give me up because she didn't care. She gave me up because she knew the truth about me." Zalika took a step back, her breath quickening. "What truth?" Kofi's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. "I'm not like other men, Zalika. I'm not the perfect husband you think I am. Nia knew that. That's why she was so eager to get rid of me. But now you're mine." Zalika's heart sank as the full weight of his words hit her. She had been so blinded by her desire for wealth and status that she hadn't seen the truth about Kofi. He wasn't just wealthy, he was dangerous. And now, she was trapped. The days that followed were a blur of fear and regret for Zalika. Kofi's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his temper unpredictable. He would go from moments of eerie calm to sudden fits of rage, throwing objects and shouting at her for no reason. Zalika realized that Nia had saved her own life by giving Kofi away, and now she was the one who was trapped in this gilded cage. She tried to leave several times, but each attempt was met with Kofi's iron grip. He watched her closely, never letting her out of his sight for too long. The villagers began to whisper about her disappearance, but no one dared interfere. After all, Kofi was a powerful man, and Zalika had chosen this life for herself. One night, as she lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, Zalika thought of Nia. How could her friend have done this to her? She had trusted her friend and thought little of it after that, but now as Zalika lay there in Kofi's house, her body trembling from the weight of fear and regret, she realized the truth. The scars hadn't come from clumsiness or the work of village life, they had come from Kofi. The realization hit Zalika like a punch to the gut. The signs had been there all along, the strange silences, the bruises, the way Nia had avoided talking about her marriage in detail. Nia had lived in fear, just as Zalika was living now. And when the opportunity came, Nia had chosen to escape, to free herself from the life that was slowly destroying her. Now, everything made sense. Nia had saved herself by offering Zalika to Kofi, and Zalika had been too blinded by greed and envy to see the warning signs. Nia's decision, as cold as it seemed, was her way out, and Zalika, in her foolishness, had walked right into the same trap, seduced by the wealth and beauty of a man who was far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Tears welled up in Zalika's eyes as she thought about the scars, about all the times Nia had avoided her questions, her sad, distant smiles. Nia hadn't wanted to betray her, but survival had driven her to do the unthinkable. Zalika had been nothing more than a pawn in a game she hadn't even known was being played, and now she understood. Zalika realized there was no easy way out of her predicament. She was trapped in a house filled with wealth, but it was a prison nonetheless.